Hello, internet friends. My name is Bay, and welcome to the Battle for Azeroth Alpha and the first pass look at the Elemental Shaman. Now, I played a lot of Elemental. I actually have killed like Mythic Coven a few times in these current tier a while ago because I had to, because LOL melee fight, am I right? But I have some experience on Elemental. I've played a bunch of Mythic Pluses in the past and whatever, back when Sephuz and Earthquake was so juicy. But the Elemental Shaman has been an interesting one to test, mainly because it is the most bugged spec I have played on the alpha to date. It's a 4-hour VOD. If you would like to watch any of that and go through all of the bugs we found and all of the different wrong tooltips and issues that are not currently working, that VOD will, of course, be uploaded right here to the YouTube channel, and you can check that out, or you can go watch it over on Twitch. But if you want to keep up to date with all the first pass, second pass, islands, war fronts, discussion videos, and live shows to come, that subscribe button is right down over there somewhere if you're the first time to this channel. Of course, you can check out the description box down below for my social medias, and of course, the actual Twitch channel page where we do all this live testing, where we find all these bugs and broken everything. But Elemental Shaman, oh, get out of there, spoiler. Elemental Shaman has seen probably some of the most serious rework of any spec in the game, but it's not been one that fundamentally changes how they play, but just changes the play style that you already are playing. They fixed a lot of the really weak parts of the spec, hopefully. Numbers aside, I will show off a number of builds in this video today. But we'll get to that and get to the gameplay after we explain everything, and then it'll all sort of come together. Because numbers aside, no tier sets anymore, depending on how Azerite armor works. Like the Azerite armor piece that I have right now on this character just gives that flame shock damage, increases the damage of your next earth shock by an amount that stacks passively, right? This doesn't really change your gameplay. It might give you a better benefit to multi-dot a little bit, but more on that shortly. The Elemental Shaman does what it does on live the same way, with just different tools in its toolbox. Now, overall, I want to do a side-by-side real quick here. This is your talents right now, and here are your talents on live. So the comparison between the two are that quite a number of talents you might be used to using are just totally gone. Other ones you might still see on the board, those are also just changed. So it's a pretty drastic change, and the most drastic one you're going to see off the bat is Elemental Blast, Echo of the Elements, and this new one, Exposed Elements on the tier 15 row. Also that Ice Fury and Ascendance are now decoupled. And then Lightning Rod is gone, but you know, Lightning Rod was just whatever. Baseline stuff. Let's go over this kind of thing. So, Elemental Overload still does the exact same thing as us on live. It has a chance that a lot of your main abilities have a chance to overload, which duplicates them, and they echo off at 85% of normal damage and generate less Maelstrom. Now, I'm reporting this tooltip because it's vague, because on nearly every single ability that generates Maelstrom, it's generating half. So why does it not say half? Well, it's because Chain Lightning has like a scaling Echo Maelstrom math behind the scenes. But again, if it's just Chain Lightning, then just say that. I don't know why it's like this, but everything else is just half Maelstrom. So generating less Maelstrom is just awkward that I just don't tell you what it is. And if anything else, I would push that Blizzard just puts the elemental overloaded amount just on the tooltip for each spell, which I will now go over real quick because there is quite a different, let's see. Your overall amount of Maelstrom generation has changed across the board, which is fine. Fulmination is gone as it currently exists on live. So it says the damage of your Lightning Bolt is 6 Maelstrom, Lava Burst is 8, Chain Lightning is 3 per target. There are other spells that do also generate Maelstrom. Ice Fury, for example, generates 15. but your overall spells still also say how much they generate on them. So why can't I just say generates 8 Maelstrom and then generates 4 on Elemental Overload procs, right? Owing your Mastery procs? Like, why can't it say that? So it could just say that, but I don't know why it can't. Beats me. Lightning Bolt is 6. Chain Lightning is 3 per target. Or, 15, you're hitting 5 total targets, right? That's the same as it is on live. And the big ones again, no fulmination. So Earthshock just costs a flat 60 Maelstrom. You only have 100. There's no 125 anymore. Obviously, the artifact is gone. So only a flat 60. They did revert this recently. Earthshock used to have this like debuff window where it would buff the next few lightning bolts, but they put this back to be a big button. Earthshock is still a heavy hitter, but there was some weird back and forth on stream today. Why does this matter, right? You always would hit Earthshock around like 70-ish or something anyway, so Blizzard just took out the guesswork and just made it a flat 60, and it does a ton of damage. Just period. That's it, right? Go for it. Connect 4. Flameshock has a cooldown and costs nothing. It deals damage up front and then over 18 seconds. Now, the biggest thing that came up when we were testing today is that, holy crap, Flameshock has a cooldown. This is one of the fundamental changes that the Elemental Shaman is going to just have to deal with. Blizzard gave you some cross-dotting potential. What is happening here? Some cross-dotting potential in Legion. That cross-dotting potential is simplified and also gone. So you can obviously hit a few targets with Flameshock. I think ideally it's 3 to 4 targets with Flameshock. Oh, also Lava Burst is always critting currently on Alpha. It's bugged, so ignore it always critting right now. Because Lava Surge is still in there, and getting a few Flameshocks out will still give you, overall, more Lava Surge procs. But again, you're not a cross-dotting class, and so be it. Because this happens. So the fact that Flameshock costs nothing simplifies the rotation slightly in your opener, that you don't have to recast a 20 Maelstrom Flameshock after you've already cast a Flameshock. When you're moving now, whenever you need to move, you can just cast Flameshock on the move and not have to worry about reclipping a lower Maelstrom Flameshock into your moved Flameshock. But having 4 Flameshocks up is a possibility. Having 2 up is super easy. Pandemicking your first one and then having 2 additional for 3 is also just fine as well. But you're going to be able to cross-dot slightly, but you're not a multi-dot spec. You're just not, so accept that that is the design decision that Blizzard is taking the spec, period. There was so much back and forth contention during the stream today, and I honestly don't think it's a big deal. It doesn't matter. You're just not a cross-dot spec. Okay, if you want to cross-dot, play a Shadow Priest or an Affliction Warlock or a Boomkin. Right? That's how they mostly AoE, though, is they cross-dot. Whereas, obviously, for Elemental Shaman, you don't AoE like that. You AoE with ridiculous Chain Lightnings and big old beefy Earthquakes. And a whole bunch of talent builds that can change how you AoE. And some cooldowns that actually change how you AoE. So that's just not how Elemental Shaman is meant to be played anymore going forward into Battle for Azeroth. That's just what it is. Not a big deal. There's also an Alliance character here or something. Oh, that's just a transmog. Oh, gosh. But that's what it is. The core of the spec, of course, is still there. Lava Surge is 15% chance to reset your cooldown of Lava Burst. Elemental Fury still gives you 250% crits instead of 200. So it's the 2.5 times critical modifier. That is still there. Some of the things you have lost, however, are returning in other ways. Oops. Tremor Totem is baseline for all shamans. Tremor Totem cannot be cast while Fear, Charmed, or Sleep. It can be cast beforehand, and it pulses essentially instantly. I think it's every 0.5 seconds, where it will pulse and remove the Fear, the Charms, and the Sleep effects over 10 seconds. There's a bit of footage in the Restoration VOD where I was getting spam feared and it was being removed before the next fear even cast, and a fear is a GCD cast. So quite powerful. Also, you notice that the Capacitor Totem is also baseline. So Cap Totem returns. It's a 3-second stun, 8-yard radius after 2 seconds of priming, it'll AoE and explode. That is still a baseline. AS is still a 40% less damage taken for 8 seconds. You still have the ranged interrupt, of course, through Wind Shear. Still have Purge. Purge is very expensive. You only get a couple of purges before your Hex is still there. You still have Earthbind. That's still there. Thunderstorm, of course, is still here. Unchanged in that regard. Frost Shock still has the 0 to 20 Maelstrom, mostly because of the Ice Fury talent interaction or having the 5-second snare up to a 10-second snare or doing double damage. The tooltip for this is way broken, so I'm going to keep hitting this target dummy for a few reasons. It's level 1, 100%, 100,000% more damage taken, so don't worry about the actual numbers. A lot of the tooltips on Elemental Shaman are one of the key things that are bugged right now with Elemental. Its tooltips are not correct at all because of the rework they just had. So again, numbers don't matter right now. Healing Surge still here, so they wicked fast cast, but has no Maelstrom synergy like Enhancements does. Farsight, still the same. Ghost Wolf, all still here. Everything else that you had that you see on live is still here. Cleanse Spirit, obviously, Earth Elemental, all that good stuff. The change to Earth Talk we went over already. Chain Lightning, still the same. Still have your Ancestral Recall, Ancestral Spirit, all that stuff. Fire Elemental has it doesn't work properly right now, but Fire Elemental as your main core cooldown now is a generator where when it is active every 30 seconds on a 2.5-minute cooldown, an effective 2-minute cooldown, that was heavily changed from live right now. It's a 5-minute cooldown with a 4-minute effective. It's a 1-minute duration. That has been changed. But it will generate, with one Flame Shock, it'll be 45 additional Maelstrom over the duration. It doesn't work right now. It doesn't generate anything. The Primal version does, so I think they just didn't roll in the coding to work on the actual greater version. But again, that'll be a bit of more of a builder when you are opening with your Fire Elemental. So it gives you 45 extra in the opener window there, of course, and every 2 minutes thereafter because of the cooldown. So a nice little improvement to the Fire Elemental. Right now, all he does on live is just attacks. They do not have any synergy with Primal Fury, though, or Elemental Fury, rather, sorry. Elemental Fury only works on your stuff. It does not work on any of your pets or summoned guardians. Those are all nothing. So, that's that. That's the core. You're still going to put up your Flame Shock. You're still going to cast Lava Burst. You're still going to cast your Lightning Bolts on pure single target. You're going to hit your Lava Surges. And your Lava Surges. And you're going to hit your big old Earth Shocks. And Lava Surges. And that's the Elemental Shaman. Still has just enough to keep you engaged, keep you going. And again, you don't have to worry about recasting a Flame Shock in the opener because it doesn't need to be done. And because of the overall Maelstrom change, the overall lowering of all the abilities, you're not spending any Maelstrom on your Flame Shock, so they've just taken the Maelstrom down a bit to keep it even. You build so much on live right now because you have to spend it on Flame Shock, right? I do think the 18 seconds is a little bit tight, like a little too short baseline, but of course if you pandemic it goes up to 24. That feels fine, and you're going to obviously pandemic it in the regular rotation anyway. But I'm going to go over all the talents and we'll put together some builds. You may get ahead of me and start putting together builds before I get here, but I want to go over pretty much everything that is important, and then we'll go from there. Utility first, though. You'll notice, and again, if I bring up your current talents on live, bloop, you'll notice that you have the 15 passives, basically, and then you have 2 tiers of utility. They've changed a lot of this for all the DPS specs in the game that I've noticed so far, is that your 15s and 30s now are all actual DPS affecting talents. So Elemental Blast, same it is on live. Echo of the Elements, same as it is on live, the 2 charged Lava Burst, and of course the resets just give you a charge. Exposed Elements is the old debuff they were going to put in, but they made it a talent now. So the Earth Shock will increase the damage of your next Lightning Bolt on the target by 200%. This does work on the overloads, so it does work on Stormkeeper, for example, because the main Lightning Bolt is landing, the overload is off of that Lightning Bolt's damage. It obviously still applies on the exposed elements debuff. That still works. There is a bit of a weirdness that I'll go over on a talent build with exposed elements in a little bit, but that's doesn't matter. So now you've got your builder spender rotation buffs your next Lightning Bolt. Okay. You've got the synergy with having multiple flame shocks out to give you that insurance on Lava Surge, or just the possible only talent you take with Ascendance. And then there's Elemental Blast, the rotational snapshot. This does, not snapshot exactly, it does snap 2 buffs if it does echo, the same as it does on live. It could still roll 2 of the same buffs, like it could roll crit and then crit again, but it could roll crit haste, mastery crit, you know, haste, mastery, etc. if you get an echo proc right there. There you go. So that's mastery and that's haste. It is the only talent in the top tier here that actually works at all with AoE, so keep that in mind for later. Totem Mastery still here and still kind of boring. 1 Maelstrom a second. The 5% additional chance to trigger Elemental Overload on Bolt and Chain. 10% more damage on Flame Shock and 2% passive haste. Now here are 2 new ones. Master of the Elements, which casting Lava Burst will increase the damage of your next Nature or Frost spell by 20%. I just remembered that I said I was going to go over the utility stuff first and then these, but these are your first 2 tiers. So Lava Burst Weaving is a thing where you will then Lava Burst weave into your Lightning Bolts with exposed elements, for example, or Lava Burst weave into your Elemental Blasts, or Lava Burst weave into your Earth Shocks, or your Ice Furies. More on that build later. The new Aftershock now is essentially just Divine Purpose for Elemental Shamans, where you have a 30% chance when you spend Maelstrom. So your spells that cost Maelstrom have a 30% chance to refund the Maelstrom spent, period. Now, this means, at least what I've seen, is it has 2 potential huge benefits. Exposed Elements, Aftershocks, or a AoE component with, let me see if I can actually get this to happen here. I just want to show you if this works. I'll see if I can get one. Using Earthquake and layering multiple Earthquakes. Only a 30% chance, of course, to get the full spent back. But it is kind of like a Divine Purposed proc. Of course, I'm not going to get any. On the Testing VOD, which you can watch, I got a 4-stack Earthquake. I just cast Earthquake 4 times in a row, which felt really good, but obviously the RNG is there. As you can see right now, the talent is going to have huge Feast or Famine swings, but Elemental sort of has that as the play style. These big moments of power. There's 1. There's 2. There we go. So, there it is. Earthquake, while I bring this up right now, is unchanged. It still does physical damage, however. And that means that for Master of the Elements, Earthquake has no synergy currently. And I am going to add that to my notes, that why doesn't Earthquake just do a little less damage, but then do magic damage? Because Earthquake just gets completely cock-blocked by physical armor across the board. Physical armor just reduces its damage ever. Like, because normal mobs have like 25%, bosses have 30, and then raid bosses have 35. So why does the tooltip, why does a caster do physical damage? Its CC component is still very much there across the board, where CC has been minimized, cut down, squished, and that kind of stuff over the course of Battle for Azeroth's changes. So Earthquake knockdown will still be great. So Aftershocking and getting multiple Earthquakes is huge. But the fact of the matter is that it still does physical damage is very weird. And it could have synergies with builds. Like you could be able to Lava Burst into Earthquakes and buff them by 20% if they did nature damage, but they just don't. They just don't, which is strange. So the core of your spec, the 15s and the 30s, do determine sort of what kind of build you're running. More on those builds in a little bit, because you do see Earthshield here. Earthshield was nerfed in the recent build. It has the 10% healing received from your spells on the target, which is nice, but the passive heal was cut down by like 60%. It was chunked, which for Elemental Shamans and Enhancement Shamans, I was looking forward to Earthshield because of the extra defensive toolkit we'll have. Because I also have talented, essentially, Shaman Cheat Death. Nature's Guardian returns. So when you get knocked below 35% health, you'll be healed instantly for 20% of your maximum health. Yes, this is kind of like the Elemental Terrible Healing on your current artifact on live. That is a spell power scaling modifier heal, and it's garbage. This is a 20% of your max HP. So if you get knocked down and there's Rallying Cry going out, or you've got Ancestral Vigor from Resto Shaman, stuff like that, as your health scales, can only occur every 45 seconds, however. But this will, as I called it Shaman Cheat Death, it will save you from dying. This test was done the other day on the Restoration Shaman VOD, where you see the melee hit overkills me, procs Nature's Guardian, saves me from the follow-up Uber Strike, which is the special attack the Dungeoneer dummy does. So obviously it could save you from death if you're like a one-shot. It will not save you from massive damage, which I still don't know if it's double your HP or 200% your HP period. If you know in the comments, let me know down below. But Nature's Guardian will still save you from those kind of things. Very, very nice. So we have two sort of soft defensives now. And as Elemental and Enhancement Shaman players, I will rejoice in this all day. Elemental keeps AG. Enhancement lost it in the build. So, whoops, let me turn those off. Bloop, bloop. We lost AG as Enhancement, but you kept it as Elemental. Good for AoE, bad for most other times. And Windrush Totem remains here. Spirit Wolf is the Restoration Shaman talent essentially rolled in baseline, where you get 5% increased movement speed and 5% damage reduction every 1 second, up to 4 times after the global cooldown of transferring into Ghost Wolf. So 1, 2, 3, and 4. Very PvP focused, obviously has mobility for like world questing and whatever. The 20% DR, you can of course game a big hit of damage to shift in, take a bit of a DPS hit, but again, as Shaman, we don't have a very good defensive toolkit, so you can couple that with AS and have a 40 with a 20 to then hopefully not die to certain mechanics. That is definitely a possibility for Mythic Raiding, for example. Obviously, again, but the overall defensive toolkit for this for PvP is there. And then Static Charge reduces the actual cooldown of Cap Totem by 5 seconds for each enemy it stuns, up to a maximum of 20 seconds. So more stuns. Took off 20 seconds right there. Pretty easy to think about. Earth Shield for personal survivability, or you can toss on your tank if you're doing, I don't know, islands, for example, or toss on your more squishy, because you can cast it on anyone you want. Toss it on the less self-healing people in your island runs or whatnot, and again, Spirit Wolf looks good. AG, again, not good unless you're AoEing. But that is your defensives, and your mobility kit, as the changes have gone into the Elemental Shaman, and Earth Shield and Nature's Guardian are across all 3 Shaman now. So Enhancement also is the same. Now, back to the builds. Liquid Magma Totem is sitting right here. Same as it on live. It's your, basically your Lava Burst Throw-Up Totem. It has the AoE globules. High Voltage is that Lightning Bolt and Chain Lightning can now cause a second Elemental Overload. It's essentially just multi-strike. When your Mastery procs with High Voltage, it just throws 2 lightning bolts or 2 chain lightnings. Let me change my text size real quick so you can see it. So if you get an overload right there, you saw that one, it will just animate an extra lightning bolt or an extra, there's double overload right there too, or it'll extra spaghetti noodles like right there. So that just gives you double overloads. And that's fine. Definitely very mastery scaling focused. High Voltage, really good for single target and AoE. More on how that can be combined. You're already probably putting the wheels together right now, I sure. And now, here is part of the build that I have to sort of be at the ebb and flow of cooldowns. So, Fire Elemental, we went over that already, how that has the 3 Maelstrom per second when you have Flame Shocks out. That should scale, of course, to having multiple Flame Shocks. Storm Elemental, Stormy, replaces Fire Elemental completely. Same cooldown, same duration. However, when Storm Elemental is active, each time you cast Lightning Bolt or Chain Lightning, the cast time of Lightning Bolt or Chain Lightning, either or, it's 1 stacking buff, is reduced. The baseline cast time is reduced by 3%, up to 20 stacks. So, that seems pretty good, right? For like pure single target in the burst window. Primal Elementalist, which gives you the 80% stronger Earth, Fire, and Storm elementals that gives you extra control over them. This is the fun part. I want to show this off once in this video because it is really funny. And this will all come together in a very, very lightning-focused build because there are very fire-oriented and very lightning-focused builds right now. So we're going to also take a new talent called Unlimited Power. Apparently I'm not. Now I am. When you cast a spell that elemental overloads, you gain 2% haste for 10 seconds. Gaining a stack does not refresh the duration, however. Now, again, I only have 14% haste on this baseline character right now, so not a great deal of baseline haste. We'll keep exposed elements. We'll keep Aftershock, because in this build, we're not going to be hitting lava bursts like at all during the cooldown. So you can keep this if you'd like, if you want to gamble, kind of, or we'll take Totem Mastery, because we want more overloads, right? And again, we'll take Storm Elemental and Primal Elementalist, and we are going to cast Heroism right now. And we're going to open with a Flame Shock, but I'm going to ignore the lava bursts. And I'm going to open up my character panel so you can see, I'll move this over here so you can see all the damage numbers flying by. And my character panel so you can see my haste fly up. And the cast time reduction, you'll just see all the madness that happens here. So now, let us do this. Let's recast that actually right now here. So with Hero, or Bloodlust in this case, it starts off okay, but let's get an Earth Shock in there. Again, there's no reason to hit Lava Bursts right now. There's no point. We got 14 stacks, 15, 16. We're at 17 stacks. Earth Shock in there. About 20 stacks. And you can see how fast I'm casting now. Won't be much longer because there. Yeah, there goes Stormy. Ugh. With a little bit of kerfuffle, I should probably remove the Resonance Totem, what is this, message types resources, power gains. Yeah, turn that off. So you don't have to see that spam. So this was just Stormy doing Stormy things and then just spamming lightning bolts. Right? And that was a possible. You could see where my haste went up to with Power Overwhelming. You can see how fast I was casting lightning bolts again. But again, the multiplier is pretty low. Only have 16% haste with a totem farm up. But that's a possibility. This very single target burst focused build. Storm Elemental, make it primal, unlimited power. Expose elements because you're going to gain a lot of Maelstrom very fast because you're going to be casting lots of lightning bolts very fast in that window. Then Totem Mastery for the extra overload chance. And again, haste, mastery, focus. Mastery is not that high. Haste, baseline, not that high. But you can see where that would eventually happen. I'm going to kind of skip over Earth and Raid. It's the easiest talent you have here. It just does the repeated nature damage chunks on your most recently attacked target. That's just how it is on live. And Ice Fury, which I think I can talent into right now. Yeah. So Ice Fury build, totally different from that very, very single target focused rotational build right there. Let's take Echo and Master of the Elements now and play with some Ice Fury. So you still want to use 20 Maelstrom into these Frost Shocks. It's very much a thing. But with Echo and Master of the Elements, you want to weave this spell around. Now, the level 100 talents don't matter too much with this build. People just said unlimited power is probably the easiest one to do because of the GCD lowering and whatnot. That's totally fine. And because overloads give you haste, so you get to cast your lava burst a little faster with your weaving. That's fine. Stormkeeper could work. The talented version of Stormkeeper has no damage multiplier, and it only does 2 lightning bolts or chain lightnings, but it does confer a guaranteed overload on both of those. More on that build in a moment, because I want to show you one more thing about Stormy, which is really strong. But Ice Fury build, because you're going to be weaving your lava bursts to buff your other spells, and again, it helps with Echo in this, and I could have a couple different targets to make this work. We want to get to like 65, right? So we're going to do one of these lava bursts here. We'll recast that. And we're going to Master the Elements that hit. And then weave. And then Frost Shock. And then weave. I got lucky there. And then Frost Shock. And then Frost Shock. And then weave one more. And then Frost Shock. And some of those Frost Shocks hit pretty hard. 3,600 crits. So Master of the Elements, the Ice Fury hit could be nice because it can overload, whereas the Frost Shocks cannot overload. But the actual empowered Frost Shocks, also empowered by Master of the Elements, are going to hit way harder than that spell in the first place. So the Ice Fury build, because of this synergy, and of course if you have like 2 targets to Flame Shock, it's going to be even easier to weave the instant spells together. If you like the Ice Fury playstyle and you like that juggling nature, this looks just fine. Again, numbers aside, we're not numbers don't matter right now. Hopefully, without tier 7s and that legendaries, the Elemental Shaman has build options, and that's the whole point that we're going for here. But you still definitely want to put the maximum amount of Maelstrom into those Ice Fury hits. See, but yeah, getting that haste up there feels pretty good. So we're going to do one more of these, go up to 80. Don't have lava bursts. Oh, my flame shock fell off. Heck! Do one of those. One of these, didn't get one. Right, there you go. So there's a little bit of juggling to do there. And depending on, again, one target isn't great to look at. I think the optimal Echo Master of the Elements playstyle will be on council fights, where you'll have 2 or 3 flame shocks to keep active. Because then you can easily wiggle around and do the Ice Fury build. Because you want to obviously Ice Fury right when it comes back off cooldown, like right here. So cast one more of those. Cast one of these. Maybe a lightning bolt, I guess. Damn, no proc again. Damn it. There we go. Weave, and then weave, and then one more. Sure. Why not, right? Even a non-buffed one was still 3k in relation, right? Because Lava Burst only hits for 2200. Even the 3k non-Mastered Elements Ice Fury was still really good damage. But you can still that 3600 there earlier too. So quite good. Now, back to Stormy, a different talent build again. We'll go back to Primal Elementalist. We'll keep unlimited power. We'll keep Stormy. We're going to go with Aftershock and Elemental Blast, right? Maybe this is like a burst AoE build. And a burst AoE build, nope, we're going to go with Stormkeeper. So, watch the combat log for this, though, just so you know. Stormkeeper does work really well with high voltage, but I'll show you a different thing here that you may have not seen when I was doing this a little moment ago. So, we'll cast our EB here. Cast Stormy. We're going to cast up our Stormkeeper, or that's a thing. Now, watch the combat log. Yeah. Let me turn the font size down so you can see a little better. What the heck is Storm Elemental doing? So that is called Eye of the Storm. Eye of the Storm is a channeled, essentially a nature damage mind flay that channels on the target. And each time it ticks 7 times, I believe. It scales up with haste, or scales down with cast time with haste. It deals 5% more damage. That's why you see the damage slowly going up right here. A little bit by bit. All these, of course, are crits, right? Again, you see the crits are just double damage. They don't have any elemental fury benefit. But Eye of the Storm, yeah, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. Yeah, 7 ticks in total. This was the first overload I did, right? With the Stormkeeper overload. All right, that was that overload, but I did one more down here. I hard cast that one. The burst AoE potential, I didn't cast any Earthquakes in there. I should have. I wasted Maelstrom. Primal Elemental, Storm Elemental has, you could use regular Storm Elemental. He doesn't have the ability. He just has the Chain Lightning and the Lightning Bolt chain, and that kind of stuff happens. But the Primal version has that Eye of the Storm ability, which is ridiculous burst AoE. Now, of course, taking 2 talents to make that happen makes sense, right? You lose Liquid Magma, you lose Earth and Rage, whatever. But then the high voltage version also has the ability there because you can Stormkeeper high voltage and you'll get a guaranteed double overload on both of the Chain Lightnings or both of the single target Lightning Bolts. So, but this is obviously very burst oriented, takes a 2.5 minute cooldown, 2 minutes effective cooldown to make this happen. The other thing, though, in case you don't want to do that, you actually want to take high voltage Stormkeeper because maybe the fight needs more mobility, it needs more burst windows more often. You want to actually use Stormkeeper every minute to be your main source of damage. So you're going to have Fire Elemental normally. So you can take Liquid Magma, right? Every minute you could have a Stormkeeper Liquid Magma burst, or you can take Stormkeeper high voltage burst. But if you untalent Storm Elemental right now, I'm waiting for the cooldown to come back up, and you have Primal Fire Elemental, he has new ability as well. So we'll take high voltage here, and we'll scroll back down the combat log here. So the wind gusts are the baseline. Let's put a flame shock up so it kind of refreshes our combat log. So the Fire Elemental has a little something called Meteor. There's the guaranteed high voltage Stormkeepers on 4 targets. The Meteor is like Mage Meteor, essentially. He turns into the meteor the Primal Fire Elemental does. Transforms into a molten meteor, charges the target, dealing a massive amount of fire damage almost within 10 yards of your target, then reforms back at your original position. So it does not meteor damage, as you notice, though. It does 25-ish, 100 damage per target, just... So again, if you don't take Stormy and you want high voltage, you still have your Primal Fire Elemental having a bit of a burst cooldown as well. Also single target, right? You noticed there that I mouse clicked both of them. You could of course make a macro or drag the bar from your pet bar down to your bar. I just made sure you notice that it's a actual ability on the Primal Elementalist greater version, right? Of the Storm or Earth Elemental. Or Fire Elemental. I said Earth. Whoops, what am I giving away here? Oh, Earth Elemental. What are you doing, Rocky? What is this? Hardened skin? The Primal Earth Elemental hardens its own skin and the Shaman's skin into pure granite, reducing all damage taken by 40% for 10 seconds? It's a 1 minute cooldown. You can't see the tooltips behind my head. So right now on live, I was told multiple times that the hardened skin only works on the actual Earth Elemental. Now it works on you. I'm a little salty, but I'm appreciating the fact that my Elemental Shaman brethren have another defensive cooldown due to the fact that Primal Elementalist could be taken on a lot of situations. Again, depending on numbers, if Primal Elementalist gives your Fire Elemental or Stormy enough damage to be competitive and not just fall way behind an Ice Fury build, Earth and Rage hopefully isn't the better one, because Earth and Rage is just really boring. Having the extra shield wall is so powerful. So good. And of course, Enhancement won't have that because only Elemental Shamans get the actual Elementals. So that's a huge extra bonus. So both the Greater Fire Primalized or the Greater Storm Primalized, both are really good. Both the basic versions of Fire or Storm are both also pretty good, again, because if you want to run Storm Elemental for parts of the encounter where you're going to be chaining a lot of chain lightnings, or you want to Ice Fury for all the single target, right? Because you're only going to be changing your rotation up based on 30-second windows of time with your Elemental. Do you want the Fire Elemental because you want to be able to cross dot and gain the additional Maelstrom? I'll cast it now because it works with Primal, right? You'll see my Maelstrom going up, and if I have multiple, it'll go up even faster, because each time it deals damage, you'll gain the Maelstrom from each target. So again, you can AoE with this too, and you'll gain all that extra Maelstrom. So that could work with Aftershock as well. You're gonna be cross-dotting those Flame Shocks out there, because the more you have, the more Maelstrom you gain. Make sure that's out there. One more of these, one more of those. So it just works. It's supposed to work on the Greater Fire Elemental, the baseline one. It just doesn't work right now. It works on Primal. But there's a lot of synergy now with the type of elemental you summon for the situation you're summoning it for. And that's really nice. Again, numbers aside. Hopefully, the numbers between the builds mean that you can play the spec of elemental that you want to, or play a spec of elemental based on your Azerite armor for what you're doing. If you're playing a lot of Mythic Plus, you're doing a lot of AoE damage fights, then you want, crazy amounts of chain lightning damage and Storm Elemental, or high voltage with Stormkeeper, right? Or you're doing clear single target and you want just like a ton of mastery and haste, and you're taking unlimited power, and you're rolling with the Storm Elemental, maybe Ice Fury, Echo of the Elements, Master of the Elements build. Options. I'm not really going to go over Ascendance at all because Ascendance is unchanged, and honestly, because of the different build paths you can take with Elemental now, Ascendance is just what it is on live. Still makes you spam Lava Burst, throw meatballs on things, and it does scale your Lava Burst up based on your critical strike chance. But that's like a haste build that focuses on that one. Whereas that also could work with Exposed Elements too, and Master of the Elements, because if you're going a big crit based build, big crit lightning bolts inside 200% damage, also really good. Stormkeeper has no scaling potential, which I understand to a degree. Has no mastery, no haste scaling, only has spell power scaling, but it has mobility scaling. The other two don't, right? You have to be spamming meatballs, or you have to be spamming spells to get the haste stacking on unlimited power. So Stormkeeper is very mobile. You can combine Stormkeepers with Ice Fury builds, and you can be moving around, weaving your Frost Shocks, weaving your Lightning Bolts, Chillings, whatever, that kind of stuff, right? And that is Elemental. A lot of cool potential build possibilities. Very lightning bolt focused, very weaving meatballs and ice focused, or just weaving meatballs with unlimited power and just throwing lots of lightning bolts there, high voltage, whatever. The overall talents right now look like there's lots of choices. You can definitely get a little bit of button bloat though with how many extra spells the Elemental Shaman can take, but normally that shouldn't be the case. You're not going to have like 9 rotational buttons. It's just not going to be ideal normally. So comments down below, please let me know what you think of the Elemental Shaman if I am totally off base here. Again, I've played a bunch of Elemental, so I'm not totally talking out of my ass. I think Ascendance is highly devalued now. Very much a Spine of Deathwing mechanic, which is okay. But the pure single target burst Storm Elemental Heroism Madness window is super fun. Or the unlimited power version. Or again, the Stormkeeper crazy AoE focused build is very fun. Either mobile wise or very turret wise. Exposed Elements looks good. Echo looks good. If you're cross-dotting, Elemental Blast is fine for rotational bits. Again, only talent that can infect your AoE at all. But comments, let me know what you think. I'll be sending in like 3 pages of bugs to Blizzard because there's a lot of things that are behind the scenes that are not working right now that I didn't really go over all of them. Again, check the VOD out if you're first time here. Welcome. Subscribe if you'd like more of this. Check out the video description box below if you want to hang out on the live stream when we do all the testing. Thank you very much for watching. Elemental looks like it has quite a number of good changes and tweaks and utility and survivability upgrades. All this stuff looks great. I will see you all in the next first pass video. Enhancement Shaman is up next.